Next up, we have Ramana Koti. He was a member of our most recent ULI mTAP, focusing on embodied carbon. And I will let him do all the explaining of what that means and what they found. This was a 6-month process where they did a lot of investigation and hard work. So he's going to try to do a quick overview, but we do have their full presentation up on our website, as well as their report and some summaries of the report. So I'll kick it over to Ramana. Do you want me to lead it, Ramana, or are you gonna?
Let me share it. Just
Okay.
a second. Let me know when you all can see my screen.
Yep, I can see it.
Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out how to. Okay, I'm gonna leave it like this and not make it full screen if that's okay.
Yep, that's fine.
But yeah. So the project was about embodied carbon in Buckhead multifamily, how livable Buckhead can help, Buckhead, guide the future of the embodied carbon of multifamily buildings mainly. And that's me. Terraword Sustainability Services was started 3 months ago, it's a green building consulting firm providing services in sustainable design, energy efficiency, and storytelling. And full credit, this was the mTAP team under ULI that did the project. I'm just a spokesperson for today. And this news is like 3 or 4 days old. EPA has released, a need for a labeling program for low embodied carbon construction materials. And, when GSA does projects, the understanding being they're going to source materials that meet these labeling requirements. And somebody like Livable Buckhead can say, okay, at least, 10%, 20% of the, materials you use have to come from databases meeting these requirements. So it's a very exciting development. This is a very interesting book. I'm not going to go deep into it, but if you get a chance, put it on your reading list. And this is just a simple chart that shows how, as you consider all the end users, the picture changes. We typically tend to focus on operational energy, but if you take embodied carbon, if you take transportation, all of those things into account, you get a fuller picture of things. So embodied carbon is nothing but the upstream energy or emissions used to extract, manufacture, and transport, and sometimes build buildings. So this gives you a full picture of all the stages involved. And life cycle assessment is typically the established process by which you would assess things, and embodied carbon is only one of the several factors that life cycle assessments look at. So in our case, we took the example of a Buckhead existing multifamily building to make sure we are somewhat region specific, even though information tends to be national a lot of times. So we said of all these stages in the life cycle carbon of a project, we're going to deal with A1, A2, and A3, which is raw material supply, transportation, and manufacturing. And also within building scope, we would only consider structure and enclosure for now and not interiors. So Carbon Leadership Forum has a database of different building types, and it tells you based on the information they've collected over time where your project would fall. And we felt like the 15 to 25 story multifamily buildings had a 373 kilograms of CO2 equivalent per square meter. And if you built to today's standards without trying to reduce embodied carbon, you would be at 336, which is about 10% better. And within that 336 number, we said 70% is structure, 20% is enclosure, and 10% is interiors. Now, this was the establishment of baseline for our study, and on top of which we would test reduction measures, right? So we looked at different literatures for structure and window-related embodied carbon reduction. And this is a LA specific multifamily project where they pulled out all the stops in terms of reducing embodied carbon from concrete, and they ended up with 24% savings. And this is significant because structure tends to be 70% of the overall embodied carbon. And within the literature available for windows, we found that on average 28% reduction was reported. So we theoretically said, on top of the baseline, this is good, better, best for structure. This is good, better, best for windows. And we took that and applied it on top of the 336 baseline that we had. So if you only did structure and windows, then you're looking at, in a good case, 11% reduction in embodied carbon overall, and 17% reduction in better, and 22% reduction in best. Those are the ranges we felt we found were feasible given today's circumstances and literature availability. And LEED, if you simplify the language, says if you just conduct life cycle assessment and don't try to reduce anything, they give you 1 point. And if you reduce things by 5%, they give you 2 points, and 10%, 3 points, 20%, 4 points. So there's an existing framework with LEED that we can draw from as and when needed. And here's some recommendations on how to deal with concrete's carbon footprint. If you do these 10 things, then you will get really deep reductions in embodied carbon of concrete. And we did some market survey on the cost effects of these embodied carbon parameters. And I will not go into the detail, but from a policy standpoint, what we found that was different jurisdictions are doing different things currently. So it all falls into 4 buckets, or can fall into 4 buckets, given what we're seeing. You can say not mandate anything, but say the voluntary life cycle assessment and reporting of the numbers is encouraged, or go one step above, and even though the LCA is voluntary, provide incentives for high performance buildings, or require an LCA with incentives, and require an LCA for all buildings with incentives for only the highest performing projects. So that's how far we got, but things are changing every day, and I think Helen and Denise are doing a great job of keeping up with the market. So I'll just leave it there. Yeah. Thanks for the time.
Yep, thank you. So this was a really great study for us that showed that more sustainable buildings can be built in a price-conscious way. They found that getting better concrete, better steel really is not more expensive. And there are other cities that have been updating their zoning code to require more sustainable building practices. And with this report, we hope to move forward with some of those updated zoning policies.